West Butterwick, 1 3/4 miles that away. Yes, indeed, I drove that 1 3/4 miles at the end of my last episode, which was indeed West Butterwick here in North Lincolnshire. Hello, my name is Andy and I am the village idiot, and I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm in a place called Beltoft this morning, which is a small hamlet to the east of the main village within today's parish, and that is Belton. Belton in North Lincolnshire is where we find ourselves today, and its boundaries include several hamlets as well as the main village itself. Beltoft is one of these, which is where we begin, on the very eastern edge of both the parish boundaries and the DN9 postcode. 6 miles east of Crowle, Beltoft is quite a small, out-of-the-way kind of place. In the 18th century, the Quakers were quite active in the area, and they had their own burial ground in the village. The site was reused by the Methodists, who built a chapel here in 1833, which was demolished and rebuilt in 1904. That's coming shortly. That's just after we take a look at the local bus services. Even though Beltoft is out of the way, you can still get buses out here, the 399 to Scunthorpe being the main one. The only public building in the village is the Methodist chapel. The building sits in a wide plot with a grassed area to the east, which was the former Quaker burial ground. This is interesting. The Methodist church has got links to Barnsley, according to this stone here. Foundation stone laid by Mrs. Wilkinson of Ardsley House, Barnsley, August 20th, 1903. There you go. Beltoft is a farming hamlet primarily. Of note is a gas offtake here, connected by a 9.3 mile pipeline to a gas compression station on nearby Hatfield Moor, which pumps gas into a depleted natural gas field 1,450 feet below the moor. Fun fact, Beltoft was one of the first villages to benefit from the North Links broadband initiative. Leaving Beltoft behind, next let's talk about the now dispersed country house estate of Temple Belwood, a large house in 200 acres of parkland to the north of Belton. The land once belonged to the Knights Templar of Balsall, Warwickshire. Temple Belwood is now gone. Its final demise was connected with the construction of the M180 Motorway just to the north of where we are now. In the wood up ahead is a huge obelisk measuring 30 feet, erected in 1787 by William Johnson in memory of his favourite horse, Sir Solomon. At that time, the Johnson family were in possession of Temple Belwood. Zoomed in, you can just about see it here. An OS map from the 1920s shows an agricultural tramway network running around North Moor, north of Temple Belwood, linking to a railway at Hag Lane siding. That last shot using my phone may not have been greatly clear, but I'm afraid that is as close as I'm willing to get to this, to be honest with you, because this is a very muddy path. I can't drive it because it's a bridleway, and it's against the law to drive on a bridleway, so it's a case of walk it or don't go at all. If it didn't capture the obelisk all that greatly, don't worry, I will put it in the picture bit, along with some pictures of Belwood, because I think it's an important part of Belton's history. In fact, guys, this is how important it is to Belton. It's even on their village sign, of course. There it is. There is Temple Belwood. Fantastic. I might not need to put any pictures of this in the picture bit now. There you go. That's what it used to look like. Belton Village gives its name to the civil parish, and it's a pretty large village these days, located in a central area of the Isle of Axholme. It's situated on the A161 road and approximately 6 miles east from Scunthorpe. To the north of Belton is the town of Crowle, and to the south, the town of Epworth. According to the 1991 census, Belton had a population of 2,549, and that's increased to 2,968 at the 2011 census. Although it's generally a very nice village, a lot of the properties in Ashtree Close, just off the high street seen here, are boarded up. I dug into the internet to find out why. It seems it's an area that's been earmarked for redevelopment and has been for some time, but regenerating the properties is not feasible. Potential solutions involve demolishing the current flats and building new houses and bungalows. Belton has extremely good links to the UK's motorway network. The M180 runs east to west to the north of the village, meeting the A161 at junction 2. Belton's parish's population is spread over a wide area covering 32.69 square kilometres, one of the largest parish areas in North Lincolnshire. 98.1% of that population is white British, and the population density is 96.71. The average house in the village goes up for sale on the modern market for £284,000. In Beltoft, by the way, you can add £100,000 to that price. Here again is the back of Ashtree Close as seen from a walking trail, which we'll mention momentarily in the next section. Generally an older area of the village, it's complemented on the opposite side by much newer housing off the road towards Beltoft. Now let's see what Belton has in terms of amenities next. Now normally I would separate the amenities from the interesting features into two sections, but both were awkwardly small here, so I've lumped them together. And to kick us off, there's a petrol station on the A161. Belton has a small primary school that's been in existence since 1869, and there are also two public houses, but both the Crown Inn and the Wheatsheaf can be seen in today's picture bit, as my walking route did not take me past either of them. Here, however, is Belton Methodist Church, built in 1879 to seat 300 people. It's one of a number of religious buildings within the village. Next door is a building that confuses me slightly because this clearly looks like a public hall. It even has a stone above the flagpole stating that, and there are parish notice boards here. However, according to the internet, this is a public hall too. It also has a stone stating this. It's a former Wesleyan chapel which was altered to become a public hall in 1883. Here's the local bus information too for Belton. Belton has a small selection of shops, as well as the petrol station, which is also a shop. There's a one-stop store here on the high street, and the post office is here too. Now let's check out the playing fields located down this small track off the A161. Belton's facilities here are pretty decent, as we'll see shortly. There's a playing field, which has a football pitch, along with a bowling green, and the Belton and Epworth Scout Group's base is located here as well. Now, on the map, Belton is split into two parts, two very distinct parts in fact. You've got a northern part and a southern part, and the southern part is labelled on the map as Bracon or Bracon. I don't know how to pronounce it. Might be Bracon, might be Bracon, I don't know. What's interesting to me is that the southern part is labelled as that, but there's a street in the northern part that's called Bracon or Bracon, which it's a bit interesting to me because I'm not sure if the map is right. Sometimes it's not. Google Maps isn't always right. So, I don't know. Is the northern part Bracon, and the southern part Belton? I don't know. That's something else for you Belton locals to tell me about. Anyway, we're here at the playing field and the bowls club now. Let's have a look at this. The sports facilities here are listed as a community organisation. They were originally provided to the village in 1972 and they were completely refurbished in 2009. The site has a car park with 40 spaces. Belton's War Memorial stands on an area known as Grey Green at the junction where King Edward Street meets the A161. There are 30 names for World War I and 10 for World War II. Next to this is a rather nice lamppost which doubles as a signpost, and this isn't the only one of these we'll see whilst we're here. This is known as the Coronation Lamp. One for the Belton locals. What used to be here, guys? I can see some foundations there of something that used to stand here. It's just obviously waste ground now. What is it? Or what was it, should I say? The Axholme Joint Railway formerly ran north to south through the village, established by the North Eastern Railway Act in 1902. It took over from the Goole and Marshland Railway. It was linked to the railway mentioned back at Temple Belwood, as well as for use on farms. Such lines were also used for peat extraction in this area on the nearby Thorne and Hatfield Moors, often using World War I trench railway equipment. We'll meet and talk more about the Axholme Joint Railway again in other local parishes. The former line here is part of a trail called the Trent Valley Way. So that street I mentioned earlier called Bracon or Bracon is down here. It's at the end of King Edward Street as it bends around to the right and then comes back up Jeffrey Lane. Around there it's generally speaking newer build housing. Some more of the things we saw on the right hand side of the Trent Valley Way. So I don't really see much point going down there, but if there is anything down there you Belton locals would have preferred me to cover, then please do let me know in the comments below. Now, speaking of Bracon / Bracon, I'm now going to take the car down to the southern part of the village and drive around that, because that is where the church is located. So let's go for a little drive and we'll end up at All Saints. Just before we go into the church, here's another ornate lamppost that was given to the inhabitants of the village by the Corporation of Lincoln in 1902 to commemorate the coronation of King Edward VII. It stands on Stocks Hill, and this area of Belton is known as Churchtown for obvious reasons. Belton's Grade 1 listed Anglican church is dedicated to All Saints. The church is of perpendicular style. Within its chancel chapel is a 14th century tomb, supposed to be that of Sir Richard de Belwood. All Saints has served the community since at least the 12th century. The church holds services most Sundays, with an early church for young people twice a month. Although there are entries for Belton in the Domesday Book, there's no record of a church here in 1086. The first record of the church dates from 1145, when Roger de Mowbray granted the living of the Church of Belton to Newborough Priory, an Augustinian house he'd founded between 1142 and 1143. The font here is estimated to date to the Romanesque period, probably based on its lack of ornamentation. I was literally just about to leave the church behind when I noticed this. A little brick archway over a path here leading into cemetery, which is behind the church. Didn't really want to miss this. Next door is the All Saints Centre, which was formerly known as the Collinson Cooper Hall. This, after being fully refurbished, reopened in 2016. A few paces away is the old red phone box on the corner of Stocks Hill, and this houses the parish's defibrillator. And there's also a shelter here with a small notice board. One question remains though, as far as I'm concerned: why is this called Stocks Hill? Were there some village stocks here? I'll leave that one to the comments section. Okay, there's one area of Belton Parish which I have not yet covered, and that's the hamlet of Sandtoft. Now, to get to that, I have to drive down West Street. So the camera is going back on the dashboard for this. It's a very, very long road, and it leads all the way out to the hamlet of Sandtoft. I think it's something like 1.5 miles, something like that. And there's houses all the way up on both sides, so the camera will catch everything along West Street for you next as we head towards Sandtoft. When I said West Street, I meant Westgate Road. I knew what I meant. Anyway, Westgate Road, let's go for it. Right, just before we get started with Sandtoft, it's time for Belton's Picture Bit, and here it comes right now. The trip we've just taken has brought us to Sandtoft, another small hamlet within Belton Parish. As hamlets go, this one is super interesting for a whole multitude of reasons, not least of which is Sandtoft Industrial Estate, which we'll talk some more about in a few moments. However, what's opposite this needs to be understood first. RAF Sandtoft is a former RAF Bomber Command airfield which closed in 1955 and has since been converted to other uses. The airfield is home to Sandtoft Flying School. The airfield is still known as RAF Sandtoft, but it goes by 3 other names now too, these being Belton Airfield, Sandtoft Aerodrome and Sandtoft Airfield. Whichever you wish to call it, this has some wartime history. Sandtoft opened in February 1944 as a satellite for No. 11 base RAF Lindholme in 1 Group Bomber Command. With its Halifax bombers, the unit was the only one to be based at Sandtoft, although Lancasters flew from Sandtoft during 1945. Placed on care and maintenance after the war, RAF Sandtoft was inactive when allocated to the US Air Force in 1953. The station was never occupied by American forces and returned to UK control in 1955 for disposal. So I only suspected this before I came here, I wasn't totally sure, but if you look at the map here of RAF Sandtoft, you can see that it goes over this road. So this southern portion here of the runway is that there, which you can see on the airfield, and the northern portion belongs to the industrial estate, which is over the road. There you go. And that's actually a parish boundary, because RAF Sandtoft, Sandtoft Airfield, whatever you want to call it now, actually belongs to Epworth. This part here belongs to Belton, as does this area of Sandtoft, which is where I'm going to go in a moment. And there you go, that's RAF Sandtoft. I will take some pictures of this because there's some cracking information on here, and we'll see what I can lift off this for you for the purposes of this video, and maybe for the Epworth video as well. Sandtoft Industrial Estate provides 11,139 square feet of modern workshops and industrial units, and it's an incredibly convenient location for businesses, being so close to the motorway network. One of the largest companies on this industrial estate is Copart, sometimes known as Universal Salvage. There are major car breakers, dismantlers and auctioneers. Some 500 yards from the entrance to the airfield is this memorial. This is the RAF Sandtoft Memorial, which, as you can see, is located on MOD land. This is linked to RAF Foldingworth, another base we'll see soon in West Lindsey, as the same aforementioned unit was based there for a short period of time before moving to Sandtoft. Now we're into what is effectively Sandtoft Village, or at least the main residential part of it. This is just to the south of the Grade 2 listed Hurst Priory, which you'll have just seen in the picture bit. Hurst Priory was granted to the Abbey of St Mary's of York in around 1150 by Roger de Mowbray for the use of a single monk. Sandtoft has a pub, the Reindeer Inn, which according to their website linked below has a connection to the Wheatsheaf in Belton and also the Red Lion in Crowle. What that connection is though is a little unclear. Also at Sandtoft you'll pass over this small bridge which runs over a stream. This, despite the name of the road next to it, Idle Bank, is not the River Idle, rather it's one of the many warping drains in the area. Whilst the pub, the industrial estate, the former RAF base and the priory might well be worth more than enough for one small hamlet, Sandtoft still has more to talk about. That's because it also is the home of the Trolleybus Museum, the largest trolleybus museum in Europe, and it's located on part of the site of the former airbase. RAF Sandtoft was disposed of by the RAF in 1958, but it wasn't until 1969 that the site was acquired for the museum. Since that time, volunteers have transformed what was a barren site into what you'll find here today. The museum has a workshop, a vehicle depot and an exhibition building. The first event held here was the Sandtoft Gathering in 1971, an event which is still held annually. The museum is recognised as having the largest collection of preserved trolleybuses in Europe, if not the world, with over 60 examples. Whilst the exhibits are predominantly from the UK, a collection of international examples is growing at the museum. There you go, that's Sandtoft. Quite a busy place, isn't it? Lots of traffic around. I've just waited purposely to film this outro here because there's no traffic at the moment, but this road has been heaving with lorries just now. It's got quite a lot, hasn't it? It has the Trolleybus Museum here, it has the airfield and the memorial that we saw just up there. For a small place, it's got quite a lot. And of course, it's just one small part of the parish of Belton, which is now complete. It's another one off the list in North Lincolnshire, quite a big one. Now the next one is going to be a lot smaller. It's going to be one that will struggle to get 10 minutes worth of video, I think, which is a bit of a relief after this one, to be honest with you, because yeah, this one was a lot larger than I expected. There you go though, that's the parish of Belton. I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.